to Loftside Bantr, and for today's show, we're going to have some analysis on the Boston Bruins season. We're a little bit into the hockey playoffs right now. I was able to have on Sir Dan and his wife Christina, who were season ticket holders to the Bruins, and we get some honest opinions from people that actually go to the games, and we take a look at the future for them. And as I'll mention, there's not a whole lot of positive that we start speaking about this hockey team. Just remember, you can check out all of Loftside Banter's episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube. You can go to loftsidebanter.com. And as always, the email address is loftsidebanter@gmail.com. Again, that's loftsideBantr@gmail.com. Let's go ahead and talk some Bruins hockey. Hello and welcome back to Loftside Bantr. In today's episode, we have a few guests that we're going to go over a little bit of the Boston Bruins season in review, whether good. I'm going to give you a hint. Nothing about it was good or the bad. We have Sir Dan back with us today.
Hola.
And then we have his better half, Christina, who is the ice queen of hockey, here with us today.
Hello.
So, obviously, you guys are massive Boston Bruins fans, and their season ended not great. They were 33-39, 10, what is it, overtime wins or losses is the 10. And then they had a total of 76 points, which was the worst since the 06-07 season. One of the first things we kind of want to go over, or one of the first things I want to go over is, was there any positives that came out of the season at all?
Go ahead. You go first, Christina.
I would have to say a big no. I don't think that there was anything positive.
So the only thing that I have that I can say positive about this specific season is that they did the right thing at the trade deadline. When they traded away, basically had a fire sale at the trade deadline. That was the right thing to do. I personally think that the revamping of the roster was overdue. Mm-hmm. It was the one thing that I agreed with that happened this year.
Do you agree with how they got rid of Marchand?
Marchand?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with the return. Like the guy was injured. The guy's at the end of his career. He was a rental. Like I'm fine with what they got back, if that's really what your question is.
Yeah,
I actually had if we end up talking about deadline a little bit more, like what they did at there, I have a few more thoughts on that.
We'll get into that. Obviously Marchand, fan favorite, the captain. I tend to agree with you. At this point, you had to reset as best you could, and that meant all high salaries needed to go out. Now, for some of the deals that they made, they had to get something back. But, did any of the players, at least because to me it was once the deadline kind of happened and, you obviously lost how many games in a row and whatever, that's when you knew all that stuff was happening. And you had gone through a losing streak just before the deadline too, and then you had some injuries as well. But, did any of the players stick out to you from after the trade deadline that could be something on this roster next year?
So the one that I would say, and he won the seventh player award, is Geeky. I do think that's somebody, and I looked up his kind of where he is. He's going to be a restricted free agent, which means they have his rights.
Yeah.
He's only an RFA for 1 year, and then he's a UFA. So my thought is that they're probably going to offer him an actual NHL contract and not hopefully go to arbitration. Like they can't screw around. They need people that can play. I had two players that I thought did well. It was him. Pasternak, I'm obviously like he's a scorer. So I'm more talking about like people coming up in the roster. And Mason Lohrei like he's a defenseman. Defensemen aren't going to be fully developed until they're in their late 20s. I think he's another piece that I was like, okay, this is, he should be here up on the roster.
Christina, do you feel that any of the people on the roster outside of Pastrnak are worth staying around?
I think Matthew Patras, he's young.
Yeah.
He's a center. We need a center. We need forwards, but that's if he can stay healthy. Because he was out for a good part with his shoulder. And then I think Lysell has a possibility too. That could probably develop a little more. He's got speed, and I think we lack a lot of speed.
Yeah.
He's also good at making some decent like playmaking skills where I know Pasta played well, but I mean, he's not hard to figure out. He just stands on the point. And if you can have players that move around,
right,
you can make better plays. And I think he's one of those that can.
And Christina's actually like that. This is where she's going to be pretty valuable because I kind of checked out after the trade deadline. I mean, I watched the games, but like while I was doing something else, Christina actually watched because basically they had to like backfill the roster with their AHL players and their prospects and everything. So she actually got to see a lot of them play.
Yeah.
Other than those two, I really don't feel that there's much to like, these are what to look out for. I do think they did great. They blew it all up. And I think it's going to take, I think it's overdue. Like Dan said, I think it should probably happen after Bergeron left.
Yeah, it's a thing with like the Patriots, like where Belichick would get rid of players a year too early rather than a year too late. And it seemed like some of these players, it was a year too late. Now, you had Swayman who had the off season last year. He was fighting for a contract and then came in and did not play like a number one goaltender. Korpisalo, who played well for what the role is, but now he doesn't want to stick around if he's only going to play 20 to 25 games. I think he's a trade candidate, but that means you need Swayman to be that number one.
Yeah.
And Kenny?
And I don't want to jump the gun if we were going to go in more depth in here, but that's kind of, they mismanaged, and I'm not going to say the offseason, and this is my opinion. I'm not saying they mismanaged the offseason because some of the acquisitions that they got, I was happy that they got, I guess, like with Zadorov in defense. Now, going through the season, was he great? No. But like at the time, I kind of agree with it. But I'm going to call it the preseason. I feel like they mismanaged. You come in the season, you have a coach that has no contract. I mean, he was on his last year of his contract. You have one signed NHL goalie, Korpisalo, who, let's face it, wasn't going to be your number one goalie. And you have Brad Marchand, who's in the last year of his contract. And you expect that you're going to come in and have a good start to the year, So it was kind of mismanaged from the start, and then we know like nobody bought in in at the beginning of the season, and we kind of saw what happened. The coach has maybe even unconsciously one foot in the door, one foot out the door. He's like, these guys aren't listening to me. The guys are like, well, why am I going to listen to you? You're going to be fired in 3 weeks. Like how? I don't know. Christina, what do you think?
I think leadership is what caused a lot of like the friction and problems this year. But I think it started in the off season with Swayman. And I think, he became a toxic person in the locker room and everyone just followed suit.
I mean, he was obviously a goalie that could stand on his head and had great games, but he was also playing half the season as they were tandem, last year. But, he got his money. Whatever the friction was between the front office just seemed to drop the ball on almost every single thing. And obviously losing really highlights all of that. But to kind of go after him in the offseason and try to, all the balls in your court, and then he comes out with, well, I haven't been offered any of this stuff that you're saying. And now you have a guy that is really an unproven number one, where he's not splitting time completely, I think he's going to bounce back. I do. I think he's too talented not to.
I do also. But I'll equate it to this too. When Tuukka Rask got signed to a long-term contract, not the same value, but at the time probably more, money-wise than Swayman, if you do the math. He wasn't proven either. So it's not like this doesn't happen. You have to sign a goalie, or you have to do the tandem thing. They had been doing the tandem thing. I agree with them saying this isn't sustainable. We can't be tying up $12 million in goalies. We have to pick one and then have a backup guy.
Right.
But he underperformed. I mean, but if and Christina might be right. Maybe his attitude kind of permeated the locker room, but it's not. He didn't underperform more than anybody else. Everybody underperformed. The coach underperformed. The forwards underperformed. Again, I'm giving Pasternak a pass in this because at least he scored goals. Right?
Yeah, I mean, he scored 100. He had 106 points this year. So I mean,
right. Yep.
Can't really blame him.
Look, honestly, Swayman did perform. He was inconsistent this year. I think a lot of the contract negotiations brought into the locker room, but towards the end of the season, I have to give him a little bit. I have to give both goalies a little bit of a pass. They had no defense in front of them. You lost your two big defensive players, and then you have why can I think of the big guy that you just named, Dan?
Zadorov.
Yeah. He didn't play to the expectation that I thought he would. So you have three, then you trade Carlo. They didn't really have any big guys or big defensive players at the end of the season to help them out. I think that's why we were seeing them lose 6-1. I just think so I'll give him a little bit of a pass on that, but I think he just performed inconsistently. And like you said, he had last year they split. So I think he was able to stay healthier, stay up on his game, and he was quicker last year. This year he's not. So maybe next year having a full belt that this is what the expectation is. I mean, you have a $66 million contract. You've got to perform to it.
Right. Whatever you're doing in the off season, if that's true, whatever you weren't doing in the off season last year, do it in the off season this year. Mentally, I think it's probably more mental than anything.
Yeah. I think at this point.
On the defensive thing, you're right, Christina. I kind of looked at this and all these decisions, they cascade from other stuff. So Cassidy, we're talking 3 years ago now. It was 22 that he got fired. Was a defensive coach, right? They had a great defensive structure. They had great defensive forwards. Bergeron's still on the team. Cassidy gets fired. So now your actual defensive coach is gone. Montgomery comes in. Because he's an offensive guy, that's where you wanted to go. Bergeron is still on the team. Basically, and I know he's not a defenseman, but they said it. He's coaching the team. So their defensive structure stayed for that season when they had the unbelievable season, set the NHL record.
Mm-hmm.
Bergeron leaves, and then that was before last season. Last season, you started seeing the cracks in defensive structure. This year, they're even worse. So your scheme, in whether it comes from coaching, whether it comes from the front office or whatever, I'm not going to blame on the players, because for the most part, you had the same players 3 years ago.
Right.
I think it's how they're being coached defensively is not up to snuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to stem from somewhere. And again, I think a lot of these things still come back to the Sweeney, the Neely. And again, we as Bruins fans love Cam Neely and love Don Sweeney, and glad that they're legends of the Bruins and stuff like that. But at some point in time, you have to look at it and go, well, these are your decisions that you're making, and they're not panning out. And you have players like Zadorov that are coming out and saying, we're wasting Pasta's years. Did Swayman go to and try to fight the other goalie? Did that helped us, whatever. Obviously the season was lost by that point, but this is a guy that's in your locker room that's telling you we suck and things aren't going right. So obviously there's a new head coach coming in. I don't think Sacco's coming back.
No.
I don't think he is. I think they tried it.
I don't think so either. I think we're all on the same page there. I think does he want to? Of course he does. And I'm not going to say I don't want him back, not because of how he coached the second half of the season or whatever. I don't want him back because I don't want the culture is bad.
Right.
It's a culture thing. And Andy, you hit it on the head. I've been holding back on where I think the root of all the problem is, and it is the front office. I've been holding back on that because I think we can dive into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
But the culture is bad. So anything that you can do to bring fresh eyes in on this is what I kind of want. And what I think, to be honest with you, is going to happen.
Yeah. Obviously they spoke a little bit today. They, Charlie Jacobs released his letter that Dan, you and I briefly talked about the other day. The meeting today, or the interview today, where they go, yeah, we're not missing on draft picks. Where, like, I look at 2015 and I look kind of on, obviously Pastrnak was 2014 first round pick. He's been excellent. You had 3 back-to-back first round picks in 15. Only one of them has played over 100 games, and that's Jake DeBrusk, and he's not even on your roster anymore. Now, granted, sometimes you got to make choices and move on from people.
Yep.
You have Carlo in there who's been playing.
I count that
this
as
is the
hit.
problem too, though, Andy.
Jake DeBrusk was a hit, but
right,
you can't miss on the other 2 in the first round.
And this is also the problem, though, is like that was 2015.
Yeah,
we're in 2025.
Right.
10 years later, and we're like, that's the highlight. Like, I feel like that's a problem.
Well,
you need to have like some consistency going forward.
Right. I go up the list.
I just feel like they don't take any responsibility for any of the problems that's going on.
True. I mean, I go up the list.
I think that's an ownership problem.
You had Charlie McAvoy in 2016. Okay. Still there. Trent Frederick was another first-round pick that year. Obviously not a super scorer. Had started to come on as of recently. Not on your roster anymore. Yep.
Is doing better off the team.
Correct. Your first round pick, Euro Vakanainen. Oh, I'm going to butcher these names.
No, it's Vakanainen, and
he's on the Rangers
made
now.
Like some NHL like starts and stuff, but was never able to develop to be on your team.
Yeah. 2018, you didn't have a first round pick. Jacob Luco, who is on your roster again, has 11 career goals in 140 games. 2019, John Beecher, 130 games, has 10 goals.
Oh God, I was so excited when they drafted him. Like he should be a power forward in the league, and it's just not happening. You're Andy, you're going to list all these, and what I'm going to say is, I was excited about some of these players, and drafting them is one thing. Developing them is another. And if you're constantly bringing players into hanging out in the AHL for like 4 years and they can't crack your roster, and you trade them away and then another team all of a sudden they're playing NHL hockey, that means your development sucks.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Beecher, obviously, when they drafted him in the first round, they said, oh, we think of him as a kind of a fourth line guy. Well, that's a first round draft pick. No.
You can't do that.
Right. 2020 was Mason Lorelei. Now, he shows flashes. He's a very good offensive defenseman. He had the worst plus minus in the league this year.
Oh, he totally did. Yeah.
But
when I put him as my high spot, I'm like, this is a reach for me just because I want to see the kid succeed.
Right. I think Christina brought up a good point. Lysell was 2021, 12 games. Looked really good kind of in the last few games of the year. So I think he probably makes this roster next year. Patois has played 66 games, 6 goals, 20 assists. He was your second round pick in 2022. Again, injury problems. And then nobody from 24, 23 have sniffed the NHL yet. So
I can actually give you a little bit more information I looked up, and don't ask me about the rating, but it's out of 10. The likelihood, 1 to 10, the likelihood that the player, that one of their prospect is going to be in quote unquote like daily NHL player. So the top of the list is Fabian Lysell. Just looking real quick. Jacob Lacko, who obviously has played in the NHL, but there's a reason why he's back on your team and like got traded back, is a 6 on that scale.
Right.
So, that's like, okay, barely making it maybe. They have a couple. Beecher's a 7. So is Beecher better than Lauko? Probably. But that's like where you're looking. There's no like dead outside of Fabian Lysell. There's no like dead. They're going to be NHLers. There's a guy, Ian Mitchell. He's a defenseman down in Providence, and Mason Lohrei is an 8 on that scale. So they're all in that same boat of like just scraping the fourth line of the third pairing. It's not good. They have the third this year, and that's after the trade deadline where they got Fraser Minton, who supposedly is going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
They're 30th in the league for prospects. So that means there's only two teams behind them.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping when they got some of these guys back and like, okay, here's some guys, let's put them out there. Hey, you're not normally a goal scorer. Let's put you up there and see what you can do. And they still just nothing. You had mentioned Geeky earlier where, we need to bring him back, which is, he was never a goal scorer in the league until you brought him in and basically have forced him to be a goal scorer. But he's done it, and he's worked really well with Pasta.
Yeah.
So again, keeping him around probably great.
So he makes $2 million right now. So he's on his like bridge deal, I guess. He was probably a restricted free agent at his last team. Like I said, he's going to be an RFA again this year. So if they push him, he's probably going to make. And we'll talk about the cap stuff, I'm sure, in a bit. But like he's probably going to make, if he goes to arbitration, $3.5 million, and probably if he's going to be coming unrestricted, or if they give him an actual contract, he's probably going to make about $6 million, because that's what players make in the league. Like Pavel Zacha is making $4.75 million. If he's outperforming Zacha, he's going to make more than that. I don't make the rules. That's just how it is.
You don't write the checks for these players?
No, I don't.
Do you have any ideas of who you want to be the next head coach of the Bruins? I mean, they're obviously gonna. I think who was just fired from the Rangers? Peter Laviolette. I know.
He's like my number one.
Of people just.
Yeah.
You want Laviolette? He used to coach the Bruins years ago.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be the coach? No, because I have a feeling we're going to stick with the same culture that we always do, and let's keep a hometown boy here. And I think they're going to have Mike Sullivan, who grew up in Mansfield. So every time you're watching a Bruins game, oh, he grew up here. That's the culture of the team. He's a family man. I think it's going to be soft, and I think the Bruins don't need soft anymore.
Chris has me convinced that this is going to happen too. Like, and now I'm convinced, like, because she's badgering me with this, that it's going to be Mike Sullivan. Well, and I don't. Do I have a problem with Mike Sullivan? No, but like,
he grew up in Marshfield. Yeah. He's won 2 Stanley Cups as a coach, and now his son-in-law is McAvoy. What do the Bruins like to do? They like to keep everybody in the family. You have Chris Kelly that used to play for the Bruins. That's assistant coach. You have McQuaid.
Jay Leach used to play for the Bruins too.
Yeah,
and he's an assistant coach.
You have McQuaid that's in the front office. You have Neely. You have Sweeney. Like, let's grow apart, and blow it all up and pull people from other areas. I don't know. Like the only coach I would probably keep is the goalie coach.
Yes, actually, goalie Bob needs to stay because whatever goalie he touches, nobody becomes awesome. But there's nothing quote unquote wrong with that. That's the NHL. It's like incest, for lack of a better term, in the NHL. Like all these players end up like being GMs at their former teams and stuff like that. So it's a small like community. I understand that, but if you're asking me, I want the guy from the AHL, and I don't mean the Bruins guy from the AHL. The next guy, like the next Bruce Cassidy coming up from the AHL. I don't want a retread. Do I think Tortorella being the coach would be hilarious? Yep, but it would.
I think it would. It's realistic.
Yeah, we might win 10 games next year. Tortorella,
and we might actually see a coach have a heart attack on the bench.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the names that they throw, Jay Pendelfo from BU, Jay Leach, Mike Sullivan. I agree with you, Chris, that Mike Sullivan has won 2 Stanley Cups, but it's not exciting.
Right.
Peter Laviolette, who was
I feel
here.
Like it's soft.
Right.
And I feel like hockey should be, your face turns red, you're screaming at the players, you can't hold them accountable. Instead of like, okay, let's get a tissue out and hold their hand. Like, oh, yeah. I'm sorry, you got hit. Let's, I'm just done with the softness.
Yeah. John Tortorella is on the list. Jay Quinville. Joel Quinville. Dave Tippett, Gerard Gallant.
The other one that I was thinking that no one's named is he used to be for the Penguins, Dan.
Well, he just got fired.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Again, he's a former Stanley Cup coach, so he knows what the expectations are. I think like when it comes down to it, we want to see the Bruins win another cup. Is it going to happen probably anytime soon? Absolutely not. But you need somebody to bridge them and coach them and teach them, again, how to be a defensive team.
So can I ask you guys this? Okay, I'm Dan Bylsma. I almost said Mike Bilberry. Mike Sullivan. Why do I want to go to the Bruins? Like outside of like, oh, my family's from there. Why do I want to go to the Bruins when chances are, if the Bruins don't make the playoffs next year, I don't care what they said today, Sweeney's being fired. Like maybe probably Neely and Sweeney are both being replaced, which generally when a new GM comes in, the coach gets replaced too. So why do I want to come into that situation?
That's one of the questions that I had too, is why would you want to like coach here? And honestly, right now, I don't think I would want the job.
Well, here's the reasoning I think anybody would come and want the job is because the Bruins have the opportunity to do this right. After all the stuff they've screwed up, they have the opportunity this offseason with the moves they've made at the deadline to go out and put pieces in place that you have a competitive team. You're not too far removed from that. You have the cap room. You have the ability to move you have pieces that you can move. Like we all have said that Swayman they could move Swayman. Swayman still has value. Now his contract makes him a little less valuable, but if you work with your front office, and again, I have no confidence in them right now, and I need them to change that.
This is what me too. I just keep coming back to that in my brain when I'm like, this could be done. And then I look at who is going to be making decisions. I don't trust it. But go ahead. Andy.
You have some young talent that if you give them a run, maybe they become something. And again, there's a lot of maybes and ifs and all the stuff, but the option is there. The ability to do it is there. You just have to figure it out. And so that's why I think any one of these coaches would want to come here is that, hey, we were not too far removed from this if we do this right. But again, somebody like John Tortorella is going to die on the bench with this front office because he's going to lose his mind.
He might retire, to be honest. I didn't realize this, but he's like older than most of the coaches. And he doesn't
believe it,
look that old, though. Like, he doesn't look like the oldest coach. Like, I would love, like Joe Quinville wouldn't make me angry, like a Lindy Ruff. I almost want like an old school coach, or I want somebody that I've never heard of. Like, those are my two choices.
What do they say today? They want somebody that has NHL experience. So Dave Carlisle, who was the University of Denver's coach, that basically eliminates him. the guy.
I didn't even hear them say that today.
Yeah, there was another guy. Who was the head coach of the Western Michigan that won the NCAA championship? I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was considered. Yeah. And again, the up and comer, that's fine. But again, I think you need to get somebody in place that's going to kick some people in the ass. And
that I agree.
So Andy, so this is kind of a going forward thing. You kind of just said it. You don't expect, if they make the right decisions, that this is like a Buffalo Sabres rebuilding from the ground up thing.
I think I think the ability to get back into the playoffs next year is within reach. I think it's there.
Do you think that should be the goal?
Andy, I think they have to make the right moves, and I do think they can. But again, we're looking at the front office, and is that possible? Like, or are they going to screw up? Like, are they going to go with the draft picks? Are they going to trade them for someone that can come in and help Pasta?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, or are they just going to keep the young people? I think like once the draft happens, then we can say, okay, we have a chance, or here we go again.
Yeah. So do I hope that they like make the playoffs next year, or that they, like, we don't have to go through a rebuild? Yes, but here's always my fear on that type of stuff. If like when I'm going to cross sports, when the Patriots get Mac Jones and get a bunch of free agents, and everything looks like it's going to be great, and then for the next 2 years it's like utter crap because you get that one season bump. That's what I don't want them to do. I don't want them to bump next season to make the playoffs, and then now it's an utter disaster.
What I don't,
that's my fear.
I want one of two things to happen. One, I want them to figure it out with this front office. I'm going to use something that I said I wouldn't use the other day, Dan. And yes, you are not too far removed from setting the record in the regular season.
Yep.
Now, you had a different roster, and everything else like that. Lindholm, I think, is going to figure it out. Zadorov, I think, is going to figure it out. I like those two signings.
About Elias Lindholm?
Yes. I think they can.
I'm giving Elias Lindholm another year of evaluation. And
again,
Swayman,
he needs to stay healthy.
Yep.
Swayman also. You have Hampus Lindholm coming back. We know what Hampus Lindholm is. Right. And during the regular season, he's usually pretty good. Like
right. I either you're going to fix it and you're going to be a 5-4 seed in the East, or you're going to you got to bottom out. You got to bottom out somewhere, and you just got to reset everything. Get kids some time. You got to put the young players in there and see what you got. I don't want 8th place, 8th place, 9th place, 8th place, 9th place. Like that hovering playoffs kind of to not being in the playoffs like that. That doesn't solve anything. You have to go one way or the other. You have to figure it out, or you have to totally bottom out.
In my opinion on like drafting, right, is they're going to draft some players this year. Like it's not like the NFL. These players don't play day one. They're going to have to, and let's pretend that this management group is going to be in place for the next 3 years. You have to. If you trade a first round pick, like you should be fired on the spot. You have to replenish and backfill your team,
right? And
develop these players. You just got to do it, and it's going to take 3 years. So there might be a year in the next 4 where, you're in 5th place. You made the playoffs, got killed in the first round or whatever, or maybe you make the second round. There's probably going to be another year in here where you're not going to make the playoffs, and that's where ownership is going to have to be patient, because I know ownership is you can't miss 2 years in a row, and we want 2 rounds every year if we can. Like that's they said it was funny today. They actually talked about it, saying, well, there's no mandate about how far we need to make in the playoffs. We try to win the Stanley Cup every year, and I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah,
we know what the mandate is.
Yeah, and the idea that they went, well, hey, we've set the record for this. Oh, we've done this, or oh, we made it to a Stanley Cup, but you didn't win. Like, obviously, Boston is you have to win. That is absolutely what Boston as a sports town is. They expect winning year in and year out. Now, we have seen teams, whether it's the Red Sox, the Celtics, the Patriots, whoever, be able to go through some growing pains and it comes out the other side shiny and amazing and everything else like that. The problem the Bruins have is, even with the success, they have won absolutely nothing. And that's the problem.
Not if you ask them.
Right, not if you ask them.
This is the thing, though, is like, I feel like their conference day, I didn't get to hear it, unfortunately, but I did get to hear like some of the reports after. And I'm tired of listening about the past. Like, let's talk about this season. Like each year they go back and back. Well, we did this, we did that. That was all in the past. What about this season? What did you? And I think I agree. They traded everybody. They should have give those players a chance to actually win and be competitive on another team. And let's start working towards the next 2 years, because I really think that this coming year, the 2025-26 season, I think we need to just dump it and start from scratch. Something that they should have done when Bergeron left, when Bergeron and Krejci left.
So speaking of
should have been 2 years ago.
Speaking of the trade and deadline and that type of stuff, so just really quick, they gave up the players. It was Marchand, Brazo, Carlo Coyle, Frederick, and McLaughlin, and a 5th and a 4th round pick. They got back a 4th and a 6th round pick. So I'm gonna throw those off the table, right?
Right.
So really, they got back these players, like some prospects and stuff. Max Warner, Jacob Lauko back, obviously. Kustadinov, Casey Middlestat, Will Zellers, Yokoharu. A lot of these people played like the last few weeks because the team was so bad.
Yeah.
Another D guy, Fraser Minton. They got a 1st round pick and 3 2nd round picks. One of them being the one that if Marchand in Florida makes it to the 3rd round of the playoffs, becomes a 1st.
Right.
So coming into this year, they have 3. They in theory could have three 1st round picks.
Well, that's the worst number to have
if
you're the Bruins.
They're not in a row, though.
Right.
So you're not wrong, Andy. They could do this. Coming back on their roster right now, and this is just the NHL roster. I'm not including like the players that are on 2-way contracts.
Yeah.
They have 20. Let me see this. Holy predicted space. So if they're having everybody come back, they would have $29 million left to sign other people, and those are David Pastrnak, Elias Lindholm, Casey Middlestat, Pavel Zacha, Mark Kastelik, Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm, Nikita Zoroff, Andrew Peak, Swayman Korpisalo, and they retain some Carlos salary. But that's it. You how many players is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 12 players. That's not an NHL team. So Your restricted free agents, Geeky, Lauko, Beecher, Kostadinov, and Lohrei are going to have to be paid. If you pay all of them, that's another $14 million on top. And your UFAs are Cole Koki, which I'm assuming aren't going to sign.
I'm assuming he's gone.
Yokoharu and Wotherspoon, which I'm assuming also Wotherspoon, that experiment is gone, so they're going to be gone. So you're going to have to re-sign everyone. I'm trying to do the math here. You're going to have $10 million or so. I foresee if they're going to sign somebody good, maybe they have room for one free agent. Anybody else that they sign that's going to be worth anything, they're going to have to trade players away to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave you the list of people that were signed. Maybe Pavel Zacha has value at his salary, but Lindholm's not going anywhere. He has a no trade clause. Pastrnak, you're not trading. Charlie McAvoy, I didn't actually see if he had a no trade or not. I didn't look at that. Lindholm, they're making $9.5 million, $6.5 million. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them.
Zacha,
whatever they did.
Zaka,
Saka's like 4, isn't he?
Yeah,
like in the
Zaka's
4s?
4.75.
he has I believe Zaka has some clause in his
Yeah,
contract. So I'm
he
looking
does.
at
It is.
Sport
Yeah,
Track.
it's a modified no trade, 10-team no trade list.
Yeah. Pasternak,
Yeah.
no movement clause. Lindholm, Elias Lindholm, and Zadorov, all no movement clauses.
Yeah, and McAvoy and
McAvoy,
and Hampus Lindholm do too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, looking at that deadline stuff as we were talking about, like, you brought in some players. I actually liked the Coyle trade for as much as they got back for him.
Yeah, that actually was their best. I think that was their best return that they got for Coyle. Out of the players that they traded.
People were complaining that Middleset makes $5.75 million.
Yeah,
and they're like, well, he only scores 18 to 20 goals a game. That's what Charlie Coyle gave you. But Casey Middleset's 26.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fine on this team. It was just so tough to evaluate this year, these players that came in. So I guess what I'm saying is they're going to have cap space for the first time, and everybody is in the media is celebrating. Well, they have all this cap space. They don't have all this cap space.
Right.
They finally have some cap space that they never had before. If you look at their roster, though, they're all players that are on their second contract because none of their young players who make under $1 million are playing on the roster. They need the young players to come up to supplement that roster.
Yeah, I think Fabian Lysell, if he plays like he did the last 3 or 4 games, all right, can make this roster. He's not going to be, again, a frontline guy. He's going to be a back end guy that's going to come in and have to outrun people to try to, make anything happen.
He's going to have to be up.
Yeah, he's going to have to stay healthy, like Christina said. I think you're looking at possibly Swayman being moved. Korpisalo, I think, is definitely being moved. I think Pavel
that's
Zacha.
Interesting. You think that, Andy? So right now in Providence, they have, and granted, I'm sure you can pick up backup goalies around the league, but I'm just telling you what they have. They have Brandon Bussey, who we've seen before, and they have two kind of more rookie goaltenders down there.
Yeah. I know Michael DiPietro was the team MVP or something like that. He had a pretty good year. Again, if you're bringing him up on a minimum and he's playing 25 games, okay, fine. You're playing him, but now you're hey, Swayman sucks. What happens?
So if he has to be able to handle the load, and would it be awesome for him to split the load? Yeah, but now the salary dictates that we can't afford to have somebody else here to split the load with you. So you're gonna have to figure it out, bro.
Yeah. Christina, who do you think on this roster is in danger of being shipped out?
So I think I would part ways with Hampus Lindholm.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he really has. I mean, he's been with us a few years. He hasn't made it through a full season. He sometimes, when he's on the ice, kind of question a lot of points scored when he's on the ice. So I think he's a high risk. So I would part ways with him.
So
and I do agree. I think Korpisalo will go.
Yeah.
The only thing with him is obviously you need to work with him to get him to another team because he can say no.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
stinks.
let's say, we have the opportunity to be able to make it. So that's kind of the, I'm worried about Geeky getting a big contract because this wasn't his game. Now, you're almost kind of at Pasta's beck and call because they've played so well together.
Yep.
But
between the two of them, though, they've, have scored the most, so you kind of, if you let him go, are you giving up,
if you're
one of your top scorers? And then what are you going to bring in? Or are you just going to let the development play out, which hasn't played out for years? So I think if you do let him go, you need to bring in like another high playing forward, and would you pay more for like a name, or would you just pay a little bit more to keep Geeky?
I think you're gonna like. I think you're right. Now, if you're thinking about it from the team standpoint, he is a restricted free agent for one more year. So, Andy, to your point, if you want to evaluate him for another year, you can bring him to arbitration, or you can sign him to 1 year like RFA, which isn't going to be $6 million. It'll probably be $3.5 million. He makes
Right.
$2 million right now. So I'm just like throwing that out there. I don't know how that all works.
If you come back and you say, hey, we signed Morgan Kiki to a 3-year, $9 million deal, $10 million deal. All right.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, like
absolutely.
Fine.
If he wants to do that, absolutely.
Right, which he won't. But you know,
no, he won't, because the reason for that is if he stinks, you can still trade him.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Right.
And I do think like the Bruins needed to focus on like offensive depth, because clearly you had Pasta that delivered, and now you have no secondary scoring. So you need to focus on like who's going to help him out. And I think like if they do anything with free agency, they need to go for a top 6.
Christina, I can't agree more. And like it makes no sense because of how bad their defense was this year. But when you look at the roster, they have 6 defensemen that should be able to handle a job. Like they have premier in the league defensemen. They need a better defensive scheme. I think that's the key to it.
Yeah.
So you're right. They need talent up front.
Yeah.
And honestly, like because I feel like clearly there's no captain on the team, and they've been going back with like McAvoy or Pasta. And I don't think either of those two are like a good candidate for a coach, like a captain. I just don't think. I think Pasta's not serious enough about it. You know, like I think he's just too, into his own thing. Like I honestly, like I would love for them to go after John Tavares. He's up in age, so you can sign him for a short contract. He's going to want money, but you have good offensive skills. The fact that he can bring leadership to the locker room is, I think, what they need to start like develop. I think leadership in the locker room is what this team needs, because say Chara was in that locker room as a defensive player, I don't think half the stuff with Swayman would have happened. I don't think there would have been like this back and forth negativity. So I think if you bring in somebody that's a veteran, you then have covered someone that's going to control the leadership and control the locker room, because clearly the coach can do it.
And I'm going to sound like a dope, but Tavares is the center, right? I can't remember if he plays center or wing at this point.
I mean, he's 35 years old. He's still scoring.
I don't dislike it, because you probably will get him
he's going to cost money.
A short term, but it'll be a short term. And for the leadership, my only hesitation on that is he played for the Maple Leafs and they couldn't get out of it. So how good is his leadership? It's like.
Yeah, I mean, but obviously all different situations in the Toronto. I'm actually hating that the Maple Leafs are winning in their series.
It won't go on for long.
Right.
I hadn't even thought of something like that, but that actually would be perfect. A short contract for he's not going to like be your highest scorer on the league on the team.
Yeah, but he scored 38 goals last year. You have Geeky that scored 33. Right. So he would be like your second top scorer.
He'll like more for the leadership.
Yeah.
Because I can't pick somebody on this team that I think I would be like, all right, mold my team after this guy.
No.
I don't know if Andy, you have anybody currently on the team that you would for a true captain.
I mean, if it's gonna be Pasternak or McAvoy, I mean, I don't think anybody will have a problem with that. But McAvoy, obviously, weird end to his season. That was kind of the perfect storm as it was with all the trades and stuff like that. Pasternak is not a huge vocal person, or at least he doesn't seem like it. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's just, if you're going to bring somebody in, it's got to be somebody has been a captain before to say, hey, you're it. I mean,
and I honestly think like McAvoy, out between the two of them, I would go with McAvoy, because I do think he would be able to like be in the locker room and be like, hey guys, cut the crap. And I think Pasta would just be like, like I just don't see him being the anger, forceful, like face turning red. And I don't even know if I can picture McAvoy, but I do want like somebody that's going to get in there and be like, okay, this is what we need. Like, let's cut the crap.
Yeah. I know you have like your feelings about Pasternak too, Christina, like because of some of the lacking things in his game, and kind of like you said, like some of the like attitude things about like being too happy-go-lucky. The reason why I put him on my list of like, okay, like he could have dropped off the face of the earth in this year. He could have just like mailed it in. Didn't. Like he's the person I would kind of expect that, and he didn't. And I was kind of like impressed by it, which is weird to say.
Right.
I think performance-wise, yeah, but I think like being able to help control, I don't think he can. Like I don't think he could. If there was, obviously some friction going on, I don't think he would be like, all right, we're doing like a team building,
right. I wonder if
no going out on this road trip, we're doing this as a team. I don't think he would be the one to do it. I think he'd be like, let's go out. Like
I wonder if he would want the captaincy. And what I mean by that is like if they were like, oh, it's gonna be McAvoy, or if they brought somebody else in, like would he be mad about it, or would he just be like, no, that's fine. Like I'm good being like, second in charge, the lieutenant or whatever.
Any hope at all that Marchand comes back to this team?
No.
I
would like to see him back, but no.
So I've been a hard no, Andy, but it's tough when you live around here and you're hearing like positive, like Bruin centric stuff. His family's still here. Of course, I'm sure his kids are like in school, which is why his family's still here.
I think he's going to retire. If they win, he retires. And I think, honestly, like he lives across the street from Bergeron. That's why they haven't moved. I don't think it has anything to do with the Bruins. I just think like they have a genuine like friendship, and his kids are now in school. His wife has Bergeron's wife, and he's looking out for them. I think he retires after this year, especially if they win a cup.
I would put him in my mind. I was at like a 10% chance of him coming back here. I'd say 20. I'd say 1 out of 5 chance that he comes back to Bruins next year. Yeah. That's about the odds I put it at.
Just really quickly, John Tavares this year played 75 games, had 38 goals, 36 assists. So again, like Christina said, still scoring. I'm looking at the available free agents out there.
You want to know who else I have on mine?
Who's that?
It's another Toronto guy, which you guys aren't going to like.
Marner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, why am I not going to like that? Yeah, please.
Well, I just think like he's young. He's scored like 27 goals, 75 assists, 102 points.
Come back to the United States, bro.
Yeah.
I just don't think we are going to have the money for him.
I don't think we're going to have the money for him either. But
he's going to be paying those tariffs, so
yeah,
get him back.
Well, Tavares was on $11 million a year. Marner's on 10.9. Then you have people like Dmitry Orlov available, Aaron Ekblad, even Provodov from Columbus, a defenseman, Brock Boeser from Vancouver, Taylor Hall is available again, and then
is Laine up? I used to like him, but he kind of dropped off a little bit. Patrick Laine.
There's another old guy. I think he's 34-ish.
Lerner is on that list.
Brock Nelson. He's from the Islanders.
Yeah.
Man, you guys
he's
went deep.
He's offensively and defensively pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't look at anybody coming in.
Well, I'm looking at players like some of the.
And he's big.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a list as of right now. Um,
So do you have their salaries of what they were making?
Yeah.
And the only reason why I asked that is, like, let's say they have 10 million to play with without trading anybody.
Yeah.
Like if you get somebody like Mitch Marner. Was it Mitch Marner?
Yeah, Mitch Marner's on
Really?
10.9 million this year.
Then that's not going to fill out your team. You're going to have to like probably trade somebody to get like a couple younger players that don't make as much. But yeah, I'm just curious as like to how much most of the. So Tavares was like, I imagine he had to be around 7 million, right?
Oh, he was 11.
He's 11.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Jeepers creepers.
Well, I'm looking at players like this Keandre Miller, the defenseman from the Rangers. He's 25, 7 goals, 20 assists this year. He made $3 million, so he's probably going to want to bump. Bowen Byram from Buffalo. He's still 23, and he had 40 points this year. So players like that are probably going to get a bump. You're probably more in the like Cody Ceci or whatever his name is. He's 32. He played for the Stars. 4 goals, 20 assists this year. Played for Edmonton the year before. Those are the types of players you're looking at, the 29, 30, 31 guys that, again, hopefully bring in some leadership too, but
that they need it, man. Again, they need the leadership like on the roster. They need a strong coach. And they need the front office to grow some cojones and like hold people accountable, including themselves.
Yeah.
And like
right now, the culture is no accountability. Like that's the one thing they don't know how to do is. That's the one thing they don't know how to do is hold themselves accountable. They just can't.
It does. And this is a fault of my own, but like I keep going like, yeah, they can put all these pieces in place, but if the culture from the top is, oh yeah, just try hard and we'll be fine. It ain't gonna change.
Right. I think there's people out there on this list that, you can plug a bunch of the holes that you have in the back half, but then you're going to overload yourself. You're going to bring in guys that, hey, they're all third, fourth line guys, and now you got one of them on the second line, hopefully. And again, that's what a lot of hockey is. You get roles in these teams. That hey, you're the you're the line that goes out and is the cross-checking line. You're the people that fight. You're the enforcers. You're the obviously there's a whole bunch of different things that they do as far as what they do on each line. But you need some sort of offense. You need some sort of shutdown defensive players.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna pay $8.5 million for Swayman, and if you put crap in front of him, he isn't gonna look like an $8.5 million guy. Now,
there's only a few goalies in history that are that, and that's like Brodeur, Patrick Roy. Where like no matter what you put in front of them, they're going to be fine. And most goalies, including the highly paid ones in the NHL today, require a decent defense in front of them.
Right. I'm looking down the list here, and I'm seeing like Nico Storum from the Florida Panthers, and like those are the types of guys they'll go get for.
You kind of nailed it, though, Andy. They're gonna have to, and I don't mean because they can't afford like other players or whatever. They're going to have to because they have nobody coming up outside of like a couple players here and there to fill the third and fourth line.
Yeah. So
they're going to need to go after those. And that's not a sustainable thing. That's what they have been doing. That's why they're kind of in the place that they are at right now. But the new crop, let's say this year, they kind of all of a sudden be awesome at drafting and developing. You're still 3 years away from those players playing. So you're going to have to kind of do this, fill that back half for a couple of years anyway.
So obviously we've gone over some free agents and stuff out there. What 3 positions do you think the Bruins need for next season? What do they do? What do they have to go out and find?
Center, like true center. I know, like Elias Lindholm they tried to do, but they probably still need a second line center unless it's going to be Pavel Zacha. If you look at the players on their roster now, they're all classified as centers, but like none of them play it.
Yeah.
I'd target that.
Oh,
I think you need a good defenseman. Probably that second line, assuming everybody comes back healthy. A good second line defenseman.
Yeah, I think you need to replace Carlo. You need somebody to step up and replace Carlo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just looking. So you're going to have, if you picture the three defense lines, right? Charlie McAvoy, Lindholm, and Zadorov. You would think that those would be on three separate lines. So you need the other half of those three, right?
Yeah, you're going to need to probably fill those. And then, it may not seem like a huge importance, but, you're going to need a guy that can back up Swayman. If Swayman can do the job.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
For 60 games. If it's Michael DiPietro, then fine. If it's Brandon Bussey, fine. I mean, I remember, what was it, last year? He made some outrageous save in the preseason. I was like, there's your guy. There's your guy that is a cheap backup. Yeah. But it is, you got to find something like that. If not, you got to go find a cheap guy in the back. No, Daniel Vlader is going to be available again. I don't think you can pay him $2 million, but he left here, went to Calgary, and has at least won double digits games most of the years anyway.
You know how everybody has their like weird thing that like logically doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
mine's with AHL goalies. In my mind, everybody that the Bruins had that have gotten is going to be the next like Martin Brodeur. Vladar, I was like, oh, he's going to be great. PK Subban's brother, Malcolm Subban, I'm like, oh, he's going to be great. Brendan Bussey last year is like, why do we need Swayman? Like, that's I have like a mental block where I just assume that they're the best thing.
Yeah. You think it translates from one to the next, and then all of a sudden you can't stop anything. You're like, oh, okay.
So don't ask me for my goalie.
Right. How long of a leash do you give the front office next year?
Very short.
Yeah.
I think they should be gone this year.
I think they should be too. I have zero faith in.
Halfway through the season, I lost faith in any of their ability.
So here's the thing on that, right? So obviously, the season starts. Whenever the season starts, I think we all know they're going to be there at the start of the season. So, the draft. I'm thinking the important things that the front office would be involved in. So this year's draft is if the leash is short and they end up being out, this year's draft is like kind of thrown in the trash can. Yeah. Would you do it, Christina? The trade deadline's probably the next spot, right? Like where they're super important. Would you do it like before the trade deadline? So when you say short?
Well, yeah, I think like if there's no performance, I would do it before the trade deadline, get a good GM in here that can maybe pull something and help you for the 2006-2027 season.
The only reason why I asked that is because if you do that like mid-season, you do it before the trade deadline, you're not getting an NHL caliber GM likely because they all have jobs and are all doing it for other teams. So.
Do we really think right now that Sweeney's an NHL caliber? Do we think he's going to go to another team at the end of this contract, which is this year? This is his last season.
Do I think so? Yes. I absolutely
do. You really do?
Huh. Because I think they look at the stats. They look at the things that they just said today. They're the most winning team since 2015 or whatever. They have made the playoffs every year except for one.
Except you're not performing in them, which is the problem. It's like
but they don't.
Fans,
so that's like the unfortunate thing for us is that we see it every day. So you have more of a vibe on like what the culture is with the team and stuff like that. I think that he would, if Sweeney was fired and wanted to go someplace else, he would have a job next season if he was fired right now. I'm convinced of it. Because they just rehire everybody in the NHL.
I mean, that's why you still have guys that are 37, 38 years old trotting them out there on the
Right.
ice as well. I mean,
Yeah,
hockey
right.
guys don't know when to say enough's enough. I mean, that's just hockey players in
Peter
general.
Laviolette was coaching when I was like 6, and now he's gonna maybe be the coach of the Bruins again. It's like they're the same people.
It's just recycle. They
I
always just
say
recycle.
bring back Julian.
No,
See, I see. I thought about that, and again, it's not a Claude Julien wasn't an exciting hire when he was hired, and they won a cup.
right.
So I mean,
Yeah, but they won because he taught, like Dan said, goes back to earlier. He was a defensive
Right.
coach.
I
He
love.
wanted them
I
to,
love.
and
Claude
Dan
Julien.
used to yell at the TV because he's like, "You're missing out because these players are offensive players, and they're like you would score a goal, and then everybody would play defensively. No one would
Yep.
go and try to score."
And when
remember
I say I love him, I didn't necessarily love his game, but like I liked him as a coach when like he was what was needed at that time. But like now with today's team, no, I don't want him anywhere near it.
right. So
The
Charlie,
league's not about 2-1 games anymore.
right. I mean, yeah, it's not the league anymore. Now, they're according to Tankathon, they have the 5th best odds for the overall pick. Just simming
Yeah,
it
number
right,
one.
simming the lottery right now on Tankathon. They still remain 5th
Yeah.
at 5.
yeah, because we scored too much. Thank you, Pasta.
Yeah. At 5,
We can't even lose right.
Stata.
Oh, we can't. We can't even lose right.
The best
We
player in the
let-
team.
we
Ah,
let-
you suck.
No, we let Philly score more less goals than us, so they were bumped up. They bumped us out. So now we have the 5th,
Can't even
and
do
we'll
that.
screw
right.
it up.
I would love
We'll
to
screw
think
it
that
up.
they're gonna go forward and get a higher pick and get James Hagens from Boston College, who's a center, who's somebody that they believe can come in and play right now, which I haven't seen the Bruins do that with a rookie in a long time.
I think Pasternak was the last time. And I think he even like started in the AHL that year, but I think that might be the last time. No, you know what? Did McAvoy? McAvoy came right out of college and played.
Right,
He
he
was
was
the last
signed
one. Yeah.
after BU was eliminated, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
But I mean, the other thing that I look at, and the other article that I've pulled up is, Charlie Jacobs vows return to the playoffs next season, is what he said, and he said
said that.
Yes, this is what the quote was. We've spoken at great.
From what I understand, all 3 of them contradicted each other
probably
as to what the plans were for the future.
Which is a great start.
So we can't even get along there.
All sitting at the same table.
Yeah. All arguing with each other. Yeah. So Charlie Jacobs said, "We've spoken at great length about this. The team that we currently have, if healthy and with the additions we intend to make this summer, I anticipate that we'll have a playoff team and play meaningful hockey at this time next year in 2026. There's a lot of ifs.
I can take a bet right now and I'll win. It's not happening.
All right.
What that means is that their leash
gotta be short.
is tied to the playoffs for next year. Like you can't make it more blatant than that.
And I think Neely was the one that said, "Wait a minute, like it's a building year." Like I don't think like any of them were on the same page.
Well, Neely said
all.
in the same time frame or the same press conference, "I'm still contemplating what the best course of action is. I really feel like Don has done a good job this year for the most part."
Yeah, I unfortunately heard it verbally, and it wasn't much better than what you just read.
Yeah, saying that we've drafted well, or saying that, hey, this is the things that we've done. I understand Cam Neely's a competitor. He's always been a competitor. He's always been that type of person. So he's not going to go down without a fight. And listen, I want Cam Neely to be super successful. I want Don Sweeney to be super successful. I love watching them play. Now, okay, you've had successes. You haven't won much, if anything. But sometimes time just runs out. And we may just be at that point. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just you have to make that move, and you got to make that move quick. You can't just keep dwelling on it.
Well, for me, and what drives me crazy is that it was Bergeron's last year, and again, it goes back to the players being able to dictate what happens. And he wanted to play in Montreal because that was going to be his last game in Montreal. And what happens? He gets hurt. What happens after that? We go downhill in the playoffs. We don't, we don't get out of that round. And I honestly think that if they would have let the coach and said, no, listen, you're not playing. We've already locked the playoff. If you play, you get hurt, we're in trouble. And what did he do in that year? I think Sweeney actually did good at the trade deadline. He brought in all the tools to go. He threw everything into that season for those playoffs. And we let the players dictate what was going to happen. And what happens? We lost.
Yeah,
so
I agree. I've been critical. I've been critical of Sweeney. I've been critical of Sweeney also. But and now I think we're talking back a few years. The year that he did trade the farm, and this might be part of what we're paying for now, but when he did trade the farm for, oh my God,
Orlov and Bertuzzi and all them.
I was like, you know what? Good for you.
And they looked good. They were like big bad Bruins again. Like they were pushing people around, and now it's like. But
let's not pretend. Let's not. And after the season, I said you can't put this on Sweeney this year.
No.
And none of the players did. It was all about them. But from Sweeney's standpoint, you can't act like that is a win because I made the right decisions. Yeah, but you didn't win. Like you guys aren't winning. Yes, I know you're making the playoffs. You're not where your talent says that you should be, I guess is the best way that I can put it. Like not what my expectations are.
Yeah.
And I just
you're underperforming.
And I honestly think as all of us work, we're all professional. We all have a boss. I can't go to my boss and say, this is how I'm going to do it. This is how it's going to be done. So why are we letting the players do the same thing? Like if you have a coach, the coach is saying, nope, this is what's happening. I think management and the front office needs to say, nope, he's the coach, and let him take the brunt of it. Because if something happens, then it falls back on him. But the players are like, nope, I want to do that. And I think because that culture started then, it's continued on. And that's why we have this problem of being, oh, well, I want to take the day off. Oh, I'm not going to show up for this meeting. And there's no consequences for not showing up at mandatory meetings with these guys. Like
I do think that's some of the frustration with the players that came in. Like I could picture Zadorov being like, dude, like we're losing games. Why is everybody just like, well, whatever? Like and I think from some of his comments, you could see that he was frustrated. So again, like Andy said, it like tying it all back. Like that, what we think probably is going to happen next year, or hopefully happens next year. Some of these players that you acquired last season, if they get the right coach, if they realize that they made mistakes last year and don't just go, oh, no, we did a pretty good job. And like actually in their real minds know that they didn't do a good job and make some changes, that some of these players like Elias Lindholm, okay, now we're in a structured environment. Zadorov all of a sudden becomes a better defenseman because now he's playing in a structured defensive scheme or something.
Yeah.
I can see it. Like Andy said, I can see the team without a humongous overhaul of the roster being the, third seed or whatever, number 3 in the Atlantic, which would put you about 5 in the East, which is fine.
The light at the end of the tunnel is visible. It's just,
right.
Are you going to run towards the light, or are you going to just turn around and start running backwards because of all these different things? Obviously, with the press conference today, there's not a ton of positive that came out of it, just because everybody's still critical and everything else. But again, these guys, this front office, know how to put together a team. They know how to make the moves, and yeah, the players have to take responsibility for the failure of having the best record and losing in the first round. Again, the Florida Panthers weren't a bad team. They're not a bad team. They're
Right.
obviously last year's champions.
Right.
But it's gonna be weird to see. I say weird. It's gonna be interesting to see what moves are made. And again, I'm sure we'll talk again kind of around draft time and everything else. But this team
for sure.
has it. They have the ability to do it.
I
I'll
want
be
to bring back that
watching.
toughness that was enjoyable to watch. I don't want I want the hitting, like I want back that Joe Thornton that, when somebody pushed, a play around, he got right up and got there and like fought. I mean, not for anything,
Florida.
but Zadorov did do a lot of that. I mean, he was in the box 90% of the game. But like you can't have I like that toughness. And I feel like
so we should
it's
become
not
Florida
there.
Panthers fans. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Let's
maybe I
drop
will.
our team and become Florida Panthers fans. I will be watching the like live or listening to live when they do the lottery like drawing. Usually I think it's like 10 minutes. It's really quick. But I never do it. I am this year. And yeah, granted the Bruins are up. They could technically get the number one pick, but
yeah, I've been running I
will be
this
watching
sim.
Yeah.
And they've gotten the first pick once, and I've got excited.
Yeah.
But again, we all love the Bruins. The Bruins have been, they're just one of those teams for the, that Boston has always loved and always supported, no matter what they look like. And again, it's tough that they've been so successful for the last 20 years to only really have one cup to show for it is a little disappointing.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that I've always run into. But again, we'll kind of see what they do, and again, we'll get back together and we'll talk about it and we'll judge them nonetheless.
I'm good at
this
judging.
way or that. We will be judging them.
I'm good at judging.
Judging is what we're good at from here, especially up in my loft here, where I get to make all the judgments and nobody comes after me.
Insert gavel sound.
I'll find one and I'll put it in there.
I do want to say right now, just because I'm that type of Bruins fan, and I really do want Marchand to win a cup, but deep down, I'm kind of rooting for Montgomery.
That's a good way to tie this up. What are you rooting for in the playoffs, Andy?
What a disaster that would be for this front office. I would almost, if I was Charlie Jacobs and Montgomery wins the cup, I would fire them immediately.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm rooting for it. I'm either rooting for Florida or St. Louis.
And then it came up at Easter, Andy. We were talking about this, and Dan's cousin had said, wouldn't it be great if Montgomery went up against Cassidy in the finals?
Oh boy.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I would like to see I wouldn't mind seeing the Capitals win to kind of tie off the season that Ovi has had by setting the record and stuff like that.
Yeah, he should have more than one. Like he deserved more than one. I love him.
I would like to see any team other than the Panthers win, but somehow Marchand still get the cup. So that's what I would like to see.
That's not happening,
You're right.
You gotta figure that one out.
To be honest with you, I don't want the Panthers to win either, but I do want them to make it to the third round so that we can get first round draft.
Yes, that I would agree with. I watched the game. I watched the Hurricanes and Devils game the other night, and the Devils don't even deserve to be anywhere close to these playoffs.
They just snuck in.
Yeah,
I didn't know Jack Hughes got hurt. Like I wasn't paying attention to a lot of league because I was so frustrated with the Bruins. Yeah. So they're missing the best player, kind of, but still.
I've always been a big Avalanche fan, so seeing them, the Winnipeg Jets had a great
on
year.
The team now too, right?
Yep. I like
the Jets.
I think I don't want to see the Leafs. I don't want to see the Panthers. I don't want to see the where are they? The Canadians. Those are the three teams. Any other team can win, and I'll be happy.
You know what I need to see, and it's lining up. I was saying I was at the bar last night, and I was telling the guy next to me because the Maple Leafs went up 2-0. I go, they've got them right where they want them. Meaning,
right.
He's
No,
like
they're gonna go up 3 and then lose 4.
I want him to do the like they're up 3-0 and just see Maple Leaf Square like ready to like erupt and just like watch people have heart attacks and drop dead over a 4-game span.
2-0 is the most dangerous lead in hockey.
Yeah.
Unless you're Maple Leafs.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, I really appreciate you guys coming on and ranting and raving about the Bruins. Obviously, not the year that we all expected, and hopefully, again, we all think it's the ability to get back to the playoffs and be at least a contender is there. It's just, what can this front office do? And again, I laugh about it because I've just lost so much faith in them. I know they could do it.
It's weird. During just this discussion, you guys have given me more faith, which is weird. So I'm going to be positive, Dan, for the summer now.
I'm just going to let you know I still have no faith.
Well, again, thank you very much for your time, both of you, and go Bruins.
Yeah, we'll do it again. Thanks, Andy.
All right, have a good one.
Bye.
What a great interview with two huge Bruins fans, obviously husband and wife. I'm sure this season was sitting down and watching the games were beyond frustrating. We're going to look at some hockey news while we have this hockey show going on. The Western Conference, 3 series are 3-2. So the Stars, Avalanche, Golden Knights, the Las Vegas team, the Minnesota Wild, the Kings, and the Oilers are all 3-2. So Dallas over the Avalanche, the Golden Knights over the Wild, and the Oilers are beating the Kings. Now, the last series is in Game 5. It's the Jets and the Blues, and they're tied 2-2, which is an absolute disaster for the Bruins still, because as soon as Montgomery was fired as head coach, he got a job for the St. Louis Blues, who are the 4th seed playing the 1st seed Winnipeg Jets. And, of course, they're in the series, because why wouldn't they be? On the Eastern Conference, the Toronto Maple Leafs are up 3-2. They lost last night. The Florida Panthers are up 3-1 on the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Washington Capitals up 3-1 on the Canadiens. And the Hurricanes knocked out the New Jersey Devils, which the Devils were probably the worst playoff team. On the coaching front for the Bruins, as projected, Mike Sullivan was fired from the Pittsburgh Penguins organization. Oddly enough, there was another coach named Mike Sullivan that was the co-offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers that was fired yesterday as well. So not a good day to be named Mike Sullivan working in the sports industry, because you were fired, especially if you worked in Pittsburgh. We're going to have a lot of recordings coming up. I have another interview with the Massachusetts Pirates coming up. I'm also working on a post-NFL draft show, which will go through every team. We'll kind of go through picks I like, didn't like. So we'll go through all of that. That'll be a little bit of a longer show, but that should be done by the end of the week as well. We're going to do a couple of episodes this week, and I'm going to do this when there's bigger events in sports or kind of one-off. So the NFL draft obviously was a big event. And then trying to do the interviews with the Massachusetts Pirates as well. I want to thank everybody for listening again, and I want to thank everybody for the support that I'm still getting. It's been great so far, and no matter where you are, good morning, good evening, good night, whatever it may be, we'll see you later.